PCP, long live! Forward to socialism, forward! Down with capitalism, down! Down with corruption, down! Down with neoliberalism, down! Thank you very much, Program Director, First Deputy General Secretary of our party, Comrade Madala Masuku, as well as the Provincial Chairperson, Comrade Smarts Matse, who are jointly running this program. Erengi Tomeka Uduledisha by the Pinwama Komunisi, Kidwedise Mejo Esmula Europa, Mtwara Matoto, Wamkhazwama Komunisi, by the Bilbarona, Central Committee, Malukwa Police Bureau, Baba Mapaila, Bakitsa, Batwanzela, Batule, Namera, Yamana, Batonu, Cape Town, Florida. Baba Matamona, the Renalen Police Bureau, the Hota, which were like Africa, Hadamawani, Onamo, Northwest, Casting Fontaine. Tetela msibetona kauto rola mnaeta wa October kubeli October ile ile akiseta lefatsi ka bophara tukuluo ya batho ba sepeileng batshwenyeng ba ona ba tshwere hambi ke bokedi ki ba bitse kaofela ki dimense ba tla ba ba province ba tla pele di comrade Matota Sambata mole wa rona province le maloko wa PC a leng teng mona kaofela maloko wa rona ba komunisti ba rona ba district a o ba district ya JB Max ba leng bona the whole district ya mosebetsi rona le ona ki dimense hape by the Barona Mapasat, fellow fighter Mike Shingai. Excellent. Yeah, you were just something else. The Deputy President Yamahatu Washumi Wakosatu. Africa kwa kakakarejo ibile kile lo la central committee ya ba communist apeleza nini umefanya kwa communist asimsebeti fena kimusebeti wa bana bo communist na wale kwa ndale kile kwa comrade mzwake ni committee atamani yona deputy chairman ya Kosato Yamo Northwest. Il m'a dit, Comrade Deputy President Wasamko, Comrade Laki Muloi. Il m'a dit, Happy Kapuar Filemiona. Wonderful once more, Comrade Laki. Even happy Comrade Tepo, the provincial chairperson. Wa Samko Northwest, the right at the one some Batamani Wanaka Basbaka South Sakamani, Northwest. Il may say by the Pilbana Cham, by our Communist League. Comrade Matuso, Mahali, Wabubedi. Levaita Picofela by a Communist League Validemu. The Kimisa Batmanamli Maemo of Papa Panabona, Malukwa Parlamente, Malukwa Provincial Legislator, the Councillor, by the Bilbarna Basito, Basi Medi, the Baban Babalinte, Aulu. lona ba tlile mona go mamela hore mokgatlo wa makomunisi o tshwaretseng. Jwale re thomile ho bua o ke thoma ho bolela se le 2 o'clock. Ntlo bua nyane fela. La tseba la nna ke bua nyane ka tlo. Ke tlo re fela tswa mane comrade Lucky le comrade Mohale le comrade Mike. They've summarized the core problems of what I was supposed to say. Safe to say, today, when the world is faced with a serious problem, there's an impending catastrophe in the world. The US government is led by a man who's not governed by any rule of law. Not the rule of law of America, which is the country that elected him into office, nor the rule of law of international law. As we speak, the US government has sent military ships and warplanes and their marines to surround the country of Venezuela. They've already breached the 200-kilometer nautical miles that defines boundaries between countries. They are inside the territory of Venezuela, in the sea. They want to remove a democratically elected president of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro Moros. We all know no country in the world runs elections than Venezuela. They are most democratic. They are even digital. You vote, you see your vote instant. Doesn't wait for long before you know the outcomes of those elections. We want to express our solidarity with the people of Venezuela, and especially to President Nicolas Maduro. To say, Comrade Maduro, we are with you, even from a distance, in spirit, and we wish you well in the battles ahead. We know the Venezuelan people will not give up their land as they did not over many years. That revolution in Venezuela is a socialist revolution. The reason Donald Trump is in Venezuela is because he's chasing their oil. They have the highest deposit of oil in the world today. More than 366 billion barrels of oil in reserves that Venezuela has. The next country, Saudi Arabia, is about 203 billion. Still huge. But you can imagine the gap. That's what they are looking for, the Americans. They are bullies. They just want to go and grab it and take it by removing a democratically elected government. We wish the South African government can issue a statement to condemn this international violation of law and of national sovereignty of Venezuela by the US government. Equally, the same US government, just a couple of days ago, they threatened to attack Nigeria. Donald Trump has given the Nigerian government an ultimatum to fight with terrorists. And he says, fight them or I'll come and fight them. The terrorists even went as far as the US itself. Which country is free from terrorism? No country. This is disrespect of international law. Of course, comrades, in the context of this crisis, we also have serious difficulties in other parts of the world. many people being killed in Sudan. Recently, the attack in El Fasher, where hundreds of people were massacred. A terrible atrocity that should never be allowed, especially on the African continent or anywhere else in the world. So we should express our solidarity to the people of Sudan, women and children, the civilians who are suffering under the warring factions that are fighting militarily. We say to them, soldiers must fight other soldiers, not civilians. Civilians are not trained for battles. Soldiers are. That's why there are rules governing warfare. We call on all bodies there in Sudan to comply with international law, including law of warfare. At the same time, comrades, we should express our solidarity with the people of Palestine who are battling to make a lasting peace in their homeland that has been devastated by the Zionist regime of Israel. We wish them well, and we wish for a lasting peace in Palestine with the full return of their land. And we condemn these shenanigans by the US government and Donald Trump and his business people who think they can go and take over the land of Palestinians, build resorts, when people are homeless in their own land. So therefore, on behalf of the SACP and all its members through the Central Committee, we express our solidarity with all the suffering people of the world and those who are still fighting for democracy, including our neighbors here in Swaziland, that one day they will also have a democratic dispensation in their country. We also meet at a point where our own revolution is facing very serious difficulties, what people normally call challenges. Our economy continues to stagnate and even regress. Or our economy are like to tell them now, I said our people live in poverty, in the land of plenty, as described eloquently by Comrade Mapaila Sambat, just about the minerals and other economic produce of this province. And yet, the young people of this province occupy the highest ranks of unemployment. This is the irony of capitalism. It creates super rich and super poverty in the same way, because the rich appropriate or take the wealth of others. They become rich by impoverishing others. That's why ultimately we have to change this system. The system that no matter how much the wealth of society is, it creates and generates poverty and repeat that generation of poverty continuously. That's why we need socialism, the system that will distribute the wealth of society throughout the people. And people will also earn according to their contribution in society. Therefore, this crisis that we face as a country, the crisis of the economy, capitalist economy, the crisis of neoliberalism, it's a self-made crisis. It's not a crisis ordained by God. That is why recently the government announced something. That's why I brought this big book. Comrade Mike, Utlobua Gantwena, Bukene Fuleni. 170 pages. And I got printer Elias Layer, got printer up to 174 pages. Bukaina, it was go Harvard, go University of Harvard Center for International Development, University of America. In a division, I can be growth there. By intent, I can be growth through inclusion in South Africa. Growth through inclusion in South Africa. Here, I can do researchers. Baba Nava so Baba South Africa. I know some about Baba South Africa or more. In the statistics, There you battery. Our lead. Sense of Apore, Ntwena, key economic policy, aid one about America, by letter about South Africa. Okaruna investment. Arnawa to Baru South Africa. Gale, Serik Adilen releasing park, remarkets. Mukhazbarona wa ANC. Balance on 12 10-point plan, economic 10-point plan. After Muso balance on 12 growth and inclusion strategy. Leuko ba ya Muso iwe, bari gain growth and employment strategy, growth and inclusion strategy. I mean to say. Growth and inclusion strategy gained. Kinitolaya South Africa. Eyama Imperial. It is growth through inclusion in South Africa. Cap cut and paste. Koko Ntwena Kife by SABC. Abanayo. Not growth through inclusion in South Africa because Palestine propaganda, we favor headquarters by the economists, the analysts, by the South African Navy. That's ma capital out the economy so in other words, the soul of our democracy has been stolen. The economy of our democracy has been stolen by neoliberal capitalists located right inside government in the presidency. We have to fight hard to defend our economic sovereignty as a country. That's why those people do not care about the well-being of every South African. Yes. They cannot create this question, peers of the Young Muslim, that we are saying they need to designate unemployment as a crisis. They can't do it. They can just mention it by name. Because capital and its leading forces, organized capital in South Africa, the business people, have located themselves right inside the presidency, have stolen policy direction of our presidency and therefore of our country. Now, this message, Comrade Mike, is not spent. But I directed to the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. Why a comrade Dumela, Ujiswa Fela, poison, limit 10-point plan economy, South Africa, Liberty, Naka, NEC, let's not move Hanan to defend our South Africa. NEC, after Hitler, 2 weeks after the government has adopted this as a policy, or when they've decided it, they take it to the ANC, the point that we're making Comrade Mike. Then it's a man Comrade Mapaila, Masuku, I'll go to the more high. Sometimes we talk about take up past 3 in the afternoon. Kiamakala ko president to announce a 10-point economic plan. Kim Heaven. It was a 10-point economic plan. Let's say it's a 2020 Alliance Economic Summit. I know what they. We are not even calling for it anymore. Rudumelan Gayo, the empire postponing all the time. So we're like, how is it possible that the ANC can announce an economic policy without its allies? Because what it means, Matlana Manambo, Asia will never live. Kimatlas in part, Kimata alliance. Rikite Kopano, the Barona was in part of Kosato. We went bilaterally a couple of weeks ago. Rama was a comrade, trying to run a consult at Gatamena. No, not consult at Gatamena. Why the two now? But Luna is in between. But at this time, you go net like sometimes Mama Telecom net like one day, you live up on it like a company on a day. You go net like I have been trainer. So therefore, what kind of an economic policy is this that the alliance doesn't even know and is said to be the leading force in the GNU, or is not even taken through to NEDLEC for proper discussion? In this one, Nicodemus did through the back door. So we said to the enemies of the ANC, wake up, comrades. Wake up. All the sacrifices of our revolutions are going to vain because we are not responding appropriately to the challenges facing our country. This document talks about a number of things. I just want to summarize it for you. It talks about a big bang approach to liberalization of network industries. What this means is that network industries into the logistics, housing, water, energy, telecommunications, transport, that kind of thing. Key economy is political law. Baba Tonka, economy in a Kaufela, by the private, by the market is down. Into a Zalani. Joale, Arisat of Tolamate. 100 or out naturally are not tolerant. Because I call a control about private, how about abroad, you have to buy. Out naturally you can't get bread. And by this account, you are the big bang. It's a heavy lightning. By game. So this thing, by the way, accelerated through this thing by Operation Bulingela or presidency. The money for no fella, also the little charm, also the little money be done. Can you tell us charm? Joanne, so reporting to what I did we had a gas. The energy, like as we purchase this energy and to network industry. More with the gas. But you know about the wholesale electricity market, competitive wholesale electricity market by April 2026, which will enable the private sector to participate also in water infrastructure by September 2026. Baba is assured by the time we wake up, I was not to most South Africa, economic if we were private, if we were capital. Basa accountable, basa diheto, basa emeling dihet. Yeah, we went. By the fiscal consolidation, by craft about reducer but private investment and ba shifte abayenze jwalo gore ke ntwe ke mo austerity ke na teng o khatwa ha di budget tsa mmuso so gore mine na go ka sona ha le bona di tshudu di telele di petlele ke ba ke tsa gore manese ha enough dingaka ha di enough rana ke mo mona ke nyaka rona bengesa wa o le mona suspect bona se le tsa mmuso ona Dr. Bengesa ke lo claro ka motho ka monna bo tloela se le tsa ofising tsa mmuso tsa mo practice onaka ke a le mo bona o tletse mo ngakeng le mo tletse di public hospital ina ka ho nna so leading at least go to bed is because you have to know fiscal consolidation fiscally you have a budget gore ba consolidate a budget ba squeeze get budget cuts get to austerity. It's a major principle that we liberalize in this one. So by the way, Muso's council are over relevant to OHA. And if the government is not relevant, that's why we have protest every single day across the country. Because the government has been weighed of its capacity to serve the people. But what will happen? Until labor market shifts towards private sector employment and deregulation. My president I please I correct and do not correct because what was Yawri Muso waiting savings. Imaka letting Muso work on item savings and Muso Utamene waiting savings. It's just simple as that. Janabari 20 hours our income the 70K to attract my private. And but private, but opinion to labor market deregulation. All of the president. But when I Bali kenela lungale le basebenzi alisapho bali lead to care lo ka msebenzi ke ka ho re dumela na le wena le na le mapobonisi a rona le basebenzi we will remain forever connected to the government. Baba to chincha baba to reform of public employment programs. South Africa, I did a work SA. Go back. Headline. Baba is a savings. Apella home. Ababuri. Rido et about private, about charity, about wealthiest child, or everyone about savings. When we know about one, our total wealthiest child, lowest child, instead of fighting savings, Banka Matan, by kids and children, but I'm not going to Mapaila to know who I got. I don't work with my daughter, who don't work when you're going to have money, but you could take expensive, say boarding and about the counter of our company. You take no number of son. I don't know corruption is leadership is works. For more than a year, leadership is when we have a leadership of this nature, we will not be able to resolve the problems of society. But to announce the details of social grant of distress, SRD grant. But no, but we have some production. linking that with production is a good idea. But how about Antoba Buangayo? Well, because my capital now I go on a fair Catan trainer side out. I'm not my guide down what South Africa was not savings, but I didn't do so of it. In my hand, my Baba is at 12 Philippines, but not enough now. Baba is an acceleration of green economy, infrastructure, and export diversification programs. But Masabu, Matoya is a John trainer, the resources token as well. Kintuelo, I say, Vita Day, you're not a communist, it's not a day. Kintuelo and Seva promise. Ziliposela ndifitile all over ayeta obana abana tiba batayeta jwa kanti lo baita program e formal ba khona fana ka tshilete tsa mmuso o ba khotsi ba bona ba private capital ke ga o re sa dimelana le yona economic policy ene ya 10-point plan ra reject and ma communist re tlosa isa le naneo la o bontsha ka tlhabola setjhaba sa rona jwang le ba communist. Certain have my comrades. Unale commission zeta mayamuna. Bataka commission. Ma comrades are na mule na kule kayona. Agnota la kule ka ubua kantelore re support. Re support le commission na meeting and really baba tulamba le mulalo. And even Bible evidence is so much compelling. How we must start our amanya little that's why this point that we are raising comrade matter is not only happening at local level, it's happening at national level. Crime in Alima, so we've been disappointed by collusion by some of the leadership in our movement as well as leadership in the police. But our police services, comrades, is made of tens of thousands of men and women who are not in the wrong, who are putting their lives in danger every day to protect our country and our communities. So we must support the police services, but expose corruption and criminality from amongst them. We've been shocked by how generals have demeaned themselves to be controlled and commanded by criminals. That's why we've asked our structures in communities to work to organize defense system to protect our communities and to make sure that our people live in peace. There's no police person who can be in every single street. We need to reorganize ourselves from every street level as a community to defend ourselves. The Communist Party will be willing to work with you to process this question. Criminals have become so brazen because they know even when they are arrested, they can make a call to a corrupt police officer to be released, and the case will never be found. It is in this regard, comrades, that we, the Communist Party, when we launched our People's Red Caravan program, which we appreciate that has been appreciated by the people of our country, one of its components is dealing with the safety of the communities. More Northwest, that's where we launched our activation of the People's Red Caravan in Musabi village, in Rustenburg, Moses Kotani district. That project is under threat by criminal elements. We must save it. I'll be returning there quite soon, DS, so that we protect that project not to be ever taken by criminals. We cannot build programs for criminals. It's not going to be possible. We just come back last week from in the Eastern Cape, where we did a wonderful program there. In the home state where President Nelson Mandela was raised by Regent King Tomita. As we wake up this morning, criminals have attacked that house. We wrote a letter to the Minister of the Police about the crime situation in that particular locality. We also informed the National Commissioner and the NDC of the police, as well as the Commissioner of the Police in the province. Criminals have taken advantage of corrupted politicians. That's why they can do as they please. They steal people's animals, stock, cows, sheep, everything. We will have to reorganize our communities differently for our communities to live in peace and to enjoy democracy and freedom that many of our people fought and died for. We must therefore cooperate in the same process. Demand a new economic direction that should be based on state-led industrialization to rebuild manufacturing, expand agro-processing and create new industries in housing, in transport, in technology and in renewable energy. We must definancialize the South African economy, meaning that we must redirect money away from banks and speculation and then profit from short term into real production that creates jobs to meet human needs. The financial sector in this country is laughing all the way to the bank. In the midst of all of this crisis, the biggest beneficiaries is the financial sector, the banks and the insurance sector. Bayadelela, more by control government. Government has been toying with the ANC in 2007 after a big fight by the Communist Party for more than 10 years for them to create a people's bank, a state bank, a public bank. They took a resolution at the Polokwane conference in 2007. Just a year ago, they enacted this resolution. But they still can't create a public bank because they benefit from the private banks. It's a serious problem. We can create competent public banks. Now we've even seeded functions of the state into these private banks. That's why we can now go to the bank and apply for an ID. A private bank. They say don't use technologies to bring services to the people. No. Monopoly capital, financial capital has captured the state itself in this country. So we must therefore commit ourselves to public employment programs on a massive scale, not as a stopgap relief, but as permanent and dignified work for our people. We are an underdeveloped country. You go everywhere, for instance, even in Venezuela. That's why one of the mission going forward of the People's Red Caravan, we want to ask those who are in industries to donate to us some breakers. Because in some of these communities it's not possible to walk around. So there's too much underdevelopment. We see this nice, some comrades from the African continent, when they visit South Africa, they say this country is too developed. Because they are far worse than us in terms of like basic infrastructure. But this is not adequate infrastructure for our people. You can go into the townships and the villages and see what kind of roads our people are living. And now with the rainy season coming, it's even worse. So we therefore also need municipalities to be employers of first choice because of many problems that are there in our municipalities. Because they need to be hiring workers to provide water, sanitation, housing, roads, refuse removal, energy and community infrastructure, and all of these other basic necessities that are needed. That is why our entrance into the local government sphere becomes very important. We can't allow the local government to be privatized itself. So it's a watershed, we want to contest the watershed. we have to fight for transformation of local government itself. We must also equally cooperate as we fight the monopolies and the banks and winding down household debts that is imposed by this private capital, precisely because the people have to rely on them to make a living because of the high cost of living. So they become agents of borrowing from the banks. We must therefore call for strong price regulation on essentials like food and make sure that there's enough exemption on VAT from food, including on fuel and electricity and on public transport. We need a living wage that matches survival cost of our people in our country. We need a strengthened universal basic income built on this SRD grant as a foundation, and therefore we say to government, they must now place UBIC into a full implementation on the agenda now, rather than reversing it through this 10-point plan and this Harvard instruction. We equally call for the expansion of public provision of services, water, housing, education, transport, electricity, as rights, not as just mere commodities. We have accepted for too long that basic rights of the people have been privatized, have been made commodities. In other words, you cannot have them unless you pay for them. What kind of society is that? Because tomorrow they're going to even commodify oxygen that we breathe. That's where they are going. You will have to buy oxygen. I went into a pharmacy one day. I see they say they are oxygen things. They are getting there because capitalism, in its abstraction of the economy, is also destroying the environment. We'll be running short of proper oxygen. So the countries like DRC that have huge tracts of bushland, they will be able to sell us oxygen because we are finishing it here by capitalist method of production. Equally, comrades, we must call for the immediate implementation of the national health insurance so that we can end the crisis of a collapsing public hospitals and unaffordable private health care and forever rising medical aid premiums. Many of you who are on medical aid by now, you know that the medical aids are finished. Just after July, to this time, you are done. If you don't have enough savings there, you are finished completely. That's the reality. So we need the immediate implementation of the NHI. Equally, we need expansion of work and community-led cooperatives in food, retail, transport, and energy. That's why this morning we started with our comrades here in Ituse Co-op and projects, where we saw how they are trying to be self-reliant on food production, to assist our communities here. They are already helping 36 families in their own household to produce food. We can do this as well in our own communities. I pass many households, many houses. I see nice yards. I used to do that myself. I was very good in gardening. I see that people are still enjoying this thing even in the midst of poverty. Share your gardening beauty with some food production on the side. As you water your grass and flowers, also water your garden here, the crops. Spinach, onion, beetroot, carrots, tomatoes, all those kind of things. And others that you can plant. Lastly, comrades, we just want to indicate that we must launch a massive campaign to end privatization of ESCOM. And still say yes to a just transition led by workers and our communities. Not allow this thing, even this deadline that is looming of April 2026. Because it's going to be even more difficult to afford electricity, just for cooking. We must then equally embark on a public and community-owned renewable energy programs. So we need to think outside the box. And not only think that we can create things through government or through private capital, but as communities we can become self-reliant and do things on our own. The People's Red Caravan has begun to show that element, that the people can rely on themselves and do things for themselves. We must equally edge on community cooperatives in the field of energy generation. That should be linked equally to the national grid. At the moment, for instance, everyone, the state is having this massive transformation agenda of privatization, even of ESCOM. It doesn't involve communities. And they know over the years, this is another lie they are selling to our people. Doing the private way, things will be better. When they know over the last 30 years, the private way has impoverished our people more and more than improving their lives. Only the interventions of government are the ones that have improved the quality of the life of our people. Whereas the building of hospitals, of houses, electrification in our communities and so on, all of these things were not done by the private sector, were done by government. The only problem is that the government did this by hiring private people and paying for them to run out the projects. They must take responsibility and employ people to do these things. You don't need to hire people to do everything for you as government. Why are you existing as government if you are not existing on the basis of skills and capacity of labor that is required to develop your own country? It is therefore important that we also want to call for grassroots safety structures, building of these safety structures in our communities, as well as building women's defense networks. Comrade Mike spoke at length about the conditions of South African women today that are worsening on a daily basis. We equally in this regard, particularly on safety and security, should call for youth mobilization for work, as well as youth mobilization for study, youth mobilization for service, youth mobilization against crime in our communities. We must equally call for worker community alliances to reclaim our streets and our schools and our public spaces and lead community-led anti-drug campaigns and anti-gangs campaigns. This is urgent in the midst of this crisis in the police. As we because, comrades, some of these issues that we've been raising are expressed by the Freedom Charter, which has called for people's democracy and socialism. Freedom Charter has called for people's democracy. We also call for socialism. We've just marked 70 years of the Freedom Charter. Comrade Mike was talking about the 40 years of COSATU, which we'll be marking now in December. We want all members of the Communist Party to continue to participate in the analysis of the 70 years of the Freedom Charter, to look into where we are, where are the missteps, what can be corrected. Equally, to participate effectively in rebuilding the trade union movement, especially COSATU, in participating in its renewal, in its celebration of 40 years, and in rebuilding COSATU locals. This will all celebrate together in December this year. At the same time, Comrade was saying to our workers, who we believe must remain rooted in the truth and in knowing their exploiters at the workplace. Workers are exploited by capital, but capital can be smart. It can buy politicians, can continue to exploit workers through the face of politicians. So politicians can occupy office only to serve the interests of capital, not of the workers. It is well known, even in literature. In the US, that's what we call capture, or state capture. In the US, it has reached a point where they say you reach the level of deep capture. South Africa has got a crisis of deep capture by capital. When you have reached deep capture, The capitalists don't have to tell you what to do. You just do it. Because you know what they want. That's why they produced this document. You know, we were shocked that sometimes in March this year, we had a bilateral meeting in the African National Congress. And because in December, in our bilateral discussion, the ANC was saying, no, you comrades are saying that we are implementing neoliberalism. We don't know what we are talking about. And you talk about austerity, we don't know this thing. So in our bilateral in March, we prepared to show them why we say they are implementing neoliberalism. As we present our thing, they agree. Even in their response, they agree. Then I leave there and said, no man, there's a problem. Why would this corporate agree with us all of a sudden? Is it a change of heart or now they know the truth? And you know, they are finalizing this document from Harvard. Because that document starts by criticizing the state of the state. And in the criticism of the state, it talks about all these problems that we're experiencing. But prescribes wrong diagnosis. Or diagnose wrong prescriptions. But they identify the problems that we're going through. Now, in the context of this, when they were agreeing, I said, no man, there's something wrong. And I should be worried if, for instance, I get not to trust when the ANC is agreeing with us. Because we want them more to agree with us. But they were agreeing with this document that I just shared with you. Now, going forward, we said we are going to participate in the coming local government elections with the SSC. This position, comrades, we have told our African National Congress, our ally, even our comrades in Mossad. Because initially they said, this is Soli's problem. And the leadership of the Communist Party issued a statement from the Central Committee that this is not Soli's problem. It's our decision. They still don't care. They continue to walk about telling the lies that they tell outside. But we've said, we cannot reverse this position now, the Communist Party. Only the next Congress of the Communist Party can reverse this decision. Which is in 2027. They tried their best. That's why some of them wanted to use our Special National Congress in December for mischievous tendencies and intentions. They failed to do that. And our Special National Congress reaffirmed the National Congress decision. Because even that Special National Congress had no power over the National Congress. So no one among these leaders can reverse this decision. It's a decision taken by the structures of the Communist Party. This decision is being implemented and will be implemented in full. We have said to our comrades, because we are not used to contesting elections independent of the ANC. We have said all by-elections must be contested. And the leadership in provinces and in districts, in branches, who cannot contest, they must give us very valid reasons why they can't do so on this by-elections. We have a full petition to contest all the coming by-elections. And all municipalities that come for re-election, we must contest them. The issue is to have presence in local municipalities and to raise the issues of the working class and anchor development of the people proper from a working class perspective. At the moment, we have people that have brought responsibility, they've deviated from those responsibilities, even the argument and the task of the movement. Even now they are occupying positions of the movement. At the same time, we have said, we in the Communist Party are not breaking the alliance. The alliance is made of a problem. When that is being sold out, when that program is being undermined, the alliance will dissipate. That's why we are committed to rebuild a proper class alliance on the basis of the interest of the classes that are in the struggle, in the revolution. On this basis, we have realized that we made a strategic error, but this error was made on the basis of trust. When we made this error, that Comrade Mandela explained a little bit earlier, when he was talking about the position we took before 1994, when President Mandela was coming as president, we had no reason to doubt him. When our leaders, those over them, who were part and parcel of that arrangement, we had no reason to doubt them. But the situation has completely changed. We gave too much trust, so much that today we don't even have leverage for the ANC to change its positions. Some unknown parties recently established that can control and direct the ANC. Dating my case the other day, we were abroad with Comrade Mandela. We read in the newspapers, he has given the ANC 7 days notice to return Kenny Kunene, his deputy, to his position in Johannesburg. And we're like, even Mackenzie has got such leverage in the political affairs of our country. Yes, because he has got votes in municipalities. Tina, our leverage is the trust we have on the ANC. And when the ANC betrays this trust, we are left with nothing. Because everything is in the hands of the African National Congress. That's why the ANC even had the guts to convene a meeting of councillors without calling the alliance. I asked the president, but president, what is this thing? We were at Kosafa Central Committee. Kosafa is having its own NGC. The ANC convenes a meeting of councillors. Yes, that's the level of disrespect. But we're asking nicely, Comrade President, but what is this? He says, yeah, no. As if he doesn't know. And at that time, we didn't even know what they said there. Very wrong things. Now, we have to correct these things and bring back the leverage of the Communist Party in its relation with any other organization in the alliance. So it is in this regard, Comrade, that we must build people's democracy and socialism and fight for land, water, electricity, work, healthcare, housing, and safety as rights for our people, and mobilize organs of people's power in our communities and workplaces and in villages, and stand continuously in solidarity with other international organizations and the working class across the world who are suffering as we do. In this regard, our Red October campaign is not ended, a PS of the Young Committee. This was just to reflect on what this was about. This year, we had the privilege of launching our People's Red Caravan in the Eastern Cape province in the Owa Tambo district in Tegeswen village, right in the middle of the Red October, to take forward the struggles of the people. This People's Red Caravan requires help from all of you, including to those of our comrades who are in the struggle, who have amassed some resources. Today, for instance, like I reported to you, the attack at the Great Place in Tegeswe. 2 days earlier, there was an attack at the Jogindaba Senior Secondary School in Tegeswe. When we were there, the principal and his team of the primary school came to see us, asking for help with security. Because criminals went to steal the October groceries of children in their feeding school scheme of the school. It's the worst form of an attack on a community. So we want help in this regard, because we are doing this thing on our own, on the basis of self-reliance. We have no sponsors in this regard. Anyone who can make contributions in this regard will go a long way to protect that particular community and even to protect the communities that we've been, where we started community self-help programs. Not small-scale self-help programs. I mean, in Telugu already we've also planted 17,000 crops. We're to finish the second farm, but we didn't finish the second farm because it was too dry. But as we're leaving, the rains were coming. But we also put a borehole and it has produced enough water. So we'll finish that particular community. So it is this people's community development that must be anchored in every community. You don't have to wait for the province to come to your district to start the People's Red Caravan in your own district or in your own community. Even in the townships, the People's Red Caravan is not only for villages, it's also for the townships. Here in Jumate, we can have People's Red Caravan. That is clear. Here, we can also have People's Red Caravan. I've already been briefed about the situation of the squatter camp, which is now informal settlement. It's a squatter camp, but we call it informal settlement because there's been delineated of yards and everything else. We know about the crime that is there, the problems that is there. Launch a People's Red Caravan to reclaim that particular community so it can live in peace and anchor its own development. That's the party to contribute in living. With this, comrade, we want to thank you very much for taking time to come and listen to our message on the Red October for 2025. But the mission of the Red October and of building socialism and against capitalism continues in our country. Amanda! Forward to socialism, forward! Down with capitalism, down!